Hey, welcome to the Annabelization podcast episode. Today, I'm so lucky to have Aleksandra with me, who is this gorgeous lady. And I'm so excited. She's wearing really nice jewelry, and we're kind of matching right now.
Yes, this was not planned.
It's not planned, but we knew. Where is it from, your necklace?
So I bought it while I was visiting my friend in Dubai, but I think it's originally from Afghanistan.
Okay,
But
wow.
I connected to it because it reminded me of traditional Serbian jewelry. So
Yeah, it's so beautiful. But so you are originally from Serbia. A little bit about Aleksandra. Well, she's not really listening and looking at me. I'm super in admiration of her. I met her when I was hearing her live in Kasheme in Zurich, which is a nice venue where a lot of artists perform. And I just was quite mesmerized by your sound and how it sounded like such a unique combination of a lot of styles. And so this is why I invited her to the Annabelization podcast, because I think there's a lot of stories behind that mysterious smile of hers. Okay, but we are in the same room, so I have to stop talking about you in the third person.
Thank you so much. Thank
Welcome.
you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. So I really want to kind of unpack a little bit your cultural influences in your life, because I read about you. I saw you traveled a lot. You've lived in a lot of different places. You studied in unique, really top-notch musical places like Berklee School of Music, big names, So I would love to hear about, how did you first come to music? And then did you have some Serbian influence in your life growing up in your music?
Yes. So, in terms of me and music, it feels like I've been in music for a very long time. In a way that music has been with me. I remember my parents telling me that I would sing back jingles from TV and any kind of songs that I would hear. I would try to repeat them as candidly as possible. And then when I turned 4, they decided to enroll me in a music school, and I ended up playing the accordion because I really liked the teacher that was teaching it. But then the accordion ended up being quite heavy physically.
It's a fantastic instrument.
It is, but it's a lot. Like, and when you think about coordination, right, you have the left and the right hand that oftentimes are doing kind of counterpointy type of things, and then you have the stretching of the instrument at the same time, which was a lot for like 5, 6, 7-year-old me at the time.
Crazy.
And then at one point I told my parents, this is too much. I want to actually play piano, because singing was always the grand plan, and then piano was the stepping stone of kind of learning how to accompany myself. And then when I was in high school, I enrolled in jazz music school, where I could actually pick voice as the principal instrument. So then I really felt, okay, I'm at home. I'm playing singing the type of music that's really close to the music that I listen to, that I really love. And yes, I'm now finally working on my principal instrument.
Your voice.
My voice, yes. And when it comes to Serbian music, growing up, I really didn't listen to a lot of even like popular music at the time. It wasn't really connecting with me. Also, It was a weird time, like 90s. Yeah, the 90s in Serbia, there was this explosion of what's called the turbo folk Serbian music, which is basically, you can think a lot about like pop, Turkish, Greek music kind of a thing, or like things that you would listen in, I don't know, like clubs in Turkey or Greece, but then with a lot of like this electronic production.
Interesting.
Done quite aggressively, and then with a lot of, objectification of the female body, or just the female.
I'm glad that you weren't into that.
I was not into that, even though it was everywhere, and it was kind of hard to be avoided. And it was also, like, let's say, a part of the political agenda of, like games and breads to the people while we do some other things, kind of a thing. So I was really never connecting to it much. The counterpoint to that was the Serbian rock music, which is actually pretty cool. Now that I listen back to it, I'm like, wow, this music is nice. But back then I wasn't really connecting to it. And then traditional music, I was in a way exposed to it, but it was more like the dancing traditional music, because as a kid in kindergarten, I actually danced the traditional Serbian dances.
Really? That's
Yes.
awesome.
Like I was wearing the harem pants and all the amazing jewelry
Wow.
on my head and on my around my neck. So
What
it was
is
a lot
it
of fun.
called? The traditional dancing?
We just call it folklore,
Okay.
which is folklore. But one of the dances that's quite known is called kolo.
Okay.
And it's so interesting when you just think about dances and culture, because in Serbian culture, a lot of it is everybody holding hands and being together. And
Yeah.
it's really a beautiful representation of the, like, how community is important.
Mhm.
And then when you look at some other dances like tango or salsa, it's all about the couple. And
Exactly.
it's so sensual, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a lot of,
Interesting.
you know, a lot of sexuality involved in it. And
Yeah.
there's nothing
About community, exactly.
yeah, and when you look at the Serbian music, there's not, like, rarely things are overly sensual. Maybe if you go to the south where there was more oriental influence,
Yeah.
you would see a little bit more. Like
Okay.
also emancipation from the female dancers.
Yeah,
But a
yeah.
lot of it is really like we're all together, we're holding hands, we're sticking together kind of a thing.
That's really lovely. And do you feel like this community sense that you got through this dancing when you were little and you were growing up in Serbia, do you feel like that has percolated through your own music or the kind of activities you do in Zurich with your music?
I feel that sense of community was growing. It was like a seed that slowly was growing in me. And actually, I feel like it was blooming quite wildly while I was at Berklee. This is when
Berklee School of Music.
School of
Congratulations.
Music in Boston.
What a
Thank
beautiful
you.
school.
Yes, it was really like a Disneyland for any young musician.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is where I really felt the power of being around other artists. And I mean, the school curriculum is incredible. The teachers are coming from all the walks of music. But for me, what was the most valuable thing was actually were the people and the connections we made, the groups that we were a part of, the groups that we participated, like the different projects that we participated in that we all created by ourselves. So that was
did you do any Balkan music when you were in Berklee?
I did. I was singing in traditional Bulgarian ensemble, vocal ensemble.
Wow.
With all of that, that was basically this kind of twist of traditional Bulgarian music. It's like Bulgarian music, but on steroids, because it's the arrangements of the Mystery of Bulgarian Voices, which is a combination of kind of jazzy harmonies, some kind of contemporary classical ways of orchestration, plus all of the traditional Bulgarian specificities and spices.
Wow.
So it
sounds so
gorgeous.
Diverse.
Yes.
How did you get into that?
This was an official ensemble at Berklee. So the teacher, Christian Karam, who's actually Lebanese, was quite in love with that sound. So she created the ensemble. And then there was this moment of recruiting people who are from the Balkans to join because of the familiarity with the language and some already kind of ingrown familiarity with the sound and harmonies or grooves. To have kind of a 50-50 of people who are from the Balkans and people who are not. So there was a really nice mix of singers that we had there.
How would you characterize kind of this unique Balkan music sound for someone who doesn't know anything about it, like me?
So when it comes to the quality of the vocals, some people say it's throat singing or call it throat singing, but I would say it's this very frontal, pointy, and kind of piercing type of a sound with a lot of clear vowels. When it comes to Bulgarian music, a lot of the vowels are almost like they're shaped around the e sound. Maybe this is interesting for singers. A lot of odd meter when it comes to groove. That's oftentimes divided into groups of 3 or 4. So even if you have, let's say, 9/8, it's going to be 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. So it's groups of 4 where always there's one group that's uneven.
Wow.
So there's that, and there are these very interesting harmonies with a lot of fourths and a lot of seconds, and a lot of kind of pedally things in the lower voices, which then creates with and a lot of melismatic things that are sometimes microtonal, but not as microtonal as, let's say, Turkish music or Indian music. So there's just like a little.
So you don't have the same concept of like ragas and stuff.
We
like
don't
in
have
India.
ragas, but you have some scales like
that are different.
Yes, that are a bit different, and we have a similar combination of tones that are present in some ragas that you have like like the harmonic tetrachord. Yes.
And so this Bulgarian group, how is it like? Because Serbia and Bulgaria, I mean, it's not quite the same, but you say there's a lot of commonality. So would you say the like Balkan music in general shares this commonality with all the rhythms and the tones, or is it each place has its own different system?
When I started diving deeper into the, let's say, it was the music in all the places where Serbs used to live.
Okay.
So it would be today's Serbia, but it would also be today's Croatia, Bosnia, and other places. Any place you go, you really, when you go deep into it, when you start listening to it, first it's like, oh wow, you see like the one big sound that unifies everything. Then when you start to get nitty gritty, like with any concept or any topic, then you're like, oh wow, in this place they have more of this like howling sound. And it's not so groovy. It's a lot of slower songs, or a lot of kind of howling vocal effects. And then in this other one, it's very rhythmical and it's very rich with a lot of ornaments, and the melodies are quite busy. And then in this other place, the melodies are quite simple, and maybe it's just a range of, I don't know, 4 or 5 tones, where in this other place the melodies are like all over the place and they're not easy to remember. So it's right, every region, even within the same country, has its specificities.
I see.
It's gorgeous. Even, the place is not so big. It's not as big as India.
That's incredible.
But you still have a lot of specificities for each region.
Yeah, and do you have an original song of yours where you have some Serbian influence in it, like rhythmically or something about the sound?
So when I wrote my first EP, it was quite intuitive in terms of music choices that I made. And then I would hear back from people who would tell me, hey, like this music, I could hear your Balkan heritage in there. I'm like, really? I wasn't really going for it. It's interesting that you hear it.
Yeah. And
then when I sat down and realized, like, it's some of these elements, harmonic elements that I mentioned, like a moment of these scales or little melodies that happen, or the type of vocal harmonies that I would put in the background, but they are specific, so they do come out and call for some attention. That was definitely there. And then the further I was writing music, I actually started doing things a little bit more purposefully, in terms of, okay, now I really want to put something that's quite Balkan.
So you feel like you embraced it a bit more afterwards, once you realized that it was there.
Yeah, it was like, okay, it's coming out anyways.
Yeah. Why hide it?
Let's be more intentional with it in a way, or just let's use this language that I have.
True.
And let's see how I can mix it up. And I also try to do it in ways that are less obvious. So for instance, in my latest song, Timeline, how I play with the, let's say, the familiarity and of the odd meter is I have a couple of bars that are 4/4, and then I have a couple of bars that are 7/4.
Yeah.
So there's this dancing with this odd meter, and it fits the song. So I always, the songwriter in me is very strict in terms of any choices that I make with my own songs needs to serve the song. So it shouldn't serve my identity, it shouldn't serve my ego, it shouldn't serve my need to showcase that I can do something. This has been my, let's say, maturing as a songwriter, to really focus on the song. Okay, like, is this serving the song, and how easy and naturally is this coming out? So even if I'm intentional of, okay, I can use these things, these are the tools that I have, I don't want to impose them.
Okay.
They should come out naturally, and then I embrace them.
That sounds really a very healthy way of writing. Let's listen to a little excerpt. How about that?
Yes, sounds
so would you like to listen to Timeless?
Timeline. Yes.
Timeline.
Timeless is also nice.
Okay, I'll find it.
Your words on hourglass, warning me my time has passed. Your words like daggers, knives, carving me into what I'm not. Your eyes, they hunt me down through buried corridors of my mind, blind to my scars and dreams. I become so tiny in those eyes. Don't make yours what is mine. Don't make yours what is mine. Let me have my own timeline. Let me have my own timeline. Your arms, they hold me tight. Your arms never held me right. They don't want me to grow. They don't want to see me break the mold. Don't make yours what is mine. Don't make yours what is mine. Let me have my own timeline. Let me have my own
All right, that was really lovely. That was Timeline by Aleksandra. Thank you so much. So what is it exactly, the elements that you would say are from your Serbian background in this song?
I would say they're quite hidden. As you hear it, there's nothing obviously Balkan in it, but let's say that initial sound that you hear at the very beginning, that then it's also somewhere in the background as the song progresses. How we did that was the producer told me, he just gave me a phone, and so no professional equipment, nothing. And this was the beginning of our collaboration. He said, "Oh, can you just improvise in a Balkan way for like 3 minutes?"
In a
And
Balkan
then-
way. Okay, can you do it now?
This was the prompt. You know? And then I closed my eyes and I started just singing phrases and things. And then the sound that you hear at the end was what I did, but slowed down, pitched down, that went through a lot of filters and a lot of vocoder and stuff. So
Wow.
it's a quite transformed sound, but the initial seed was very Balkan. So that's
Okay.
the one part, and the other one is this concept of odd meter, but it's not done in a Balkan way, but it's still
So
there.
you're saying odd meter, right?
Yes.
What is that exactly?
So it's everything that's not 3, 4, and 4, 4, or 2, 4, let's say. So
Okay.
it can be 7, 8, 7, 4, 9, 8 type
Yeah.
of a
Interesting.
time signature.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go crazy as 11, 13, 15, 17.
Woo!
Yes. But as I said, it's always divided in groups of 3 and 4 at the end, but there will be an uneven part, right? Because when we think about 4, 4, it's 4 even beats. But then if you think about 9, 8, it's 3 even beats and the fourth one that's not.
Right.
So there's this moment of either something being prolonged or something being shortened that gives this excitement, I guess.
Yeah.
To
I mean,
the
I
beat.
felt very excited while I was listening to your song. I was like, woo!
Yeah,
It's
and
really
the whole
nice.
point of the song is, this relationship that we have with others and with society, and this negotiation that we always do between belonging to ourselves and belonging to others, because we need
Yeah.
both.
True.
So as we go through life, we always make these micro or macro decisions around that, and the song is about claiming our own timeline of life. So we decide what makes sense for us, when to do certain things, when to hit certain milestones. So then having this weird moments of breaking out of the 4/4 and going somewhere else rhythmically also makes
Yeah,
sense.
I love that. And so when you wrote that song, do you feel like you were in a time in your life where you were feeling a bit squeezed or feeling like you were giving your time to too many other people? And where does this come from?
So the song actually is inspired by my friends.
Oh,
And one of the friend is Sicilian, another one is Indian. And what's kind of common for both of these cultures is the importance of family, and also sometimes then in the importance of fulfilling the family's expectations, especially
Right.
for women around kids and marriage.
yes.
So this was a time when I would have these conversations with my friends because they were getting very pressured by their parents to
Oh,
fulfill these expectations.
Exactly.
And then I, as a woman, also connected to it, but on a broader social level. And then suddenly this song actually became more of this conversation with society. So I turned, in the lyrics of the song, I turned the society into this like big giant creature with the eyes that are always looking at you and with the voice that's haunting you and just telling you what you need to do. And trying to carve you according to their
Yeah.
ideas, so to say.
I think it's a great song. Like the lyrics are great.
So that was the idea. Like, can I make a person out of the society and convey that negotiation or that friction that we have with it in that way as a conversational thing.
Do you feel like it helped you like feel even more empowered with your own timeline writing it?
Yes, it was this allowance to claim it in a way, especially the chorus. Like, okay, it's yours.
What about your friends?
Take it.
They must have been so excited that you wrote this song like in relation to them.
Yes, I mean they don't expect it, but then it happens. So yeah, I mean it's so funny because one of them didn't even know beforehand, and then she listened to the song. She's like, "Wow, I really love this," and I'm like, "You initiated this. Do you remember this conversation we had like back in the day?" And then she was really thrilled about it.
Aww.
Yeah, and I feel there's beauty in seeking inspiration outside of our own experiences and our own stories, because sometimes as writers we might get too caught up in our own inner processes.
Yeah.
So it's always a fun thing to get.
It's actually
inspired.
really great to discuss these lyrics with you, because I realize you wrote this song not just for yourself or not just about your own personal experiences. That's quite different from how I write my songs. I mean, I've written songs for loved people, but a lot of it has to do with like my own relationship with them, or things about them that I'd like, them to think about differently. But I think it's really interesting the angle you're taking, that you look outside for inspiration. Yeah.
And this kind of reminds me, when you think about fictional writers, at the end of the day, they're all writing about themselves.
Yeah.
Because we cannot write outside of our experience or outside of our perspective or outside of our sensibility, so to say. So we all, there's a part of us that's always present. So I definitely connected to the stories of my friends, and that's why I felt inspired. There was relatability, there was empathy,
Yeah.
there was connection.
Mhm.
So even when we write about something that feels outside, there's a part of us that's always present there. So I think that's also
Yeah.
good
You're
to remember.
coming close to a question I've been itching to ask you
Yes.
all along. It's asking about how you use music as a tool in your life and in relation to your friends, to your community. Do you feel like you also, with your music, give them then a tool as you write songs?
Oof, this is a big question in terms of just generally all the tools that music can offer us. Definitely for me, going into studying music therapy and diving deeper into that has changed a lot of things around how I approach music, how I teach music, how I am with my students or the people that I engage in music making with. Um, I would say yes, the co-creation of the circle singing community along with Joanna Elena has been a beautiful way to nurture a group of singers, to approach making music in a very different way than how we usually go about it as singers, because there are so many other elements to it that are present, and then they kind of drive us in one direction, because there's this thing of artistic identity and how do you also make yourself unique, right? Or how do you, there's the concept of market, right, around it, that then takes your music making in one direction. But this is quite taking you back to the basics in terms of who are you without too much of this other stuff. Like, who are you with yourself? How are you really feeling? What do you need to express right now? And how can music accompany you or help you be the vessel to for you to get there? And then in that process of allowing yourself to be very vulnerable, very spontaneous, how do you then connect with others? And then how do you invite them to really empathize with you and show that in a musical way? So yeah, it's really a lot of like delicate, beautiful work that happens. And then how people communicate and connect in this setting is something so special to me, because it's quite nonverbal, it's completely musical, but you feel the sincerity of it. It's undeniable. And oftentimes when you do these things with people, you really feel like you've met them in a way that you would need, I don't know, 1,000 coffee dates to get to know them in such a
It's true.
particular way.
Yeah, there's something really raw and authentic about doing music together. And yeah, very, I mean, when you're really doing music, you're very vulnerable. You know?
Yes, especially in this setting where it's not, you're not singing a song, you're not performing.
Yeah.
Nobody is observing you, but everybody's witnessing you. So I think that's a really big difference, because we're used to this binary setting where someone is performing. There is this pressure that you need to wow people.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
others are sitting and they are observing you. Oftentimes that means they're judging you or they're forming opinions. But in the context of witnessing, it's a very different place. Oftentimes there's not judgment, there's way more understanding.
Yeah.
There's way more feeling, way less thinking, a lot of being as well. So it's quite of a, and it's not a song, so you don't have this predetermined expectation of what you need to deliver. It can be way more scarier because you're creating the song on the spot, so you have no idea where you're gonna go. But there's excitement around that as well.
Of course.
And there's like, okay, what are we, especially doing it with others, like, where are we gonna go now? Are we gonna go there together?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna diverge? How are we gonna come back? Do we want to come back?
It's great. You're
so
making me
it's a
want to
lot of fun.
come to your singing circle.
Please come, because
Yeah.
it's really something I feel every singer needs to experience, because it really shifts the way how you think about singing, how you think about your voice, how you think about why you do music. And it's, you know, even when you go into these settings that are more predetermined, so to say. You carry that piece with you, which I think is very important. And this is at the end of the day what people really connect with, when you're quite open to honestly express yourself.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the part that no one needs any kind of music education to be moved by that. And at the end of the day, we're in the business of moving people and reminding them that they're human.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, I think, essential. So it's important that we stay in touch with that part of ourselves, so that we can
Yeah.
can express it, and then others can feel it. Otherwise, it's not possible.
So do you have students at your singing circle group that they come and then they really feel like it's changed them and helped them, in that then they can even use this in their daily life?
We have people who have been coming back a lot, and this is also interesting to see just how the depth of work, how far it goes. And in terms of what are the tools that they get, I think it's this kind of habit or practice of taking care of yourself in a way.
Yeah.
Or like meeting yourself, actually, maybe that's a better way to say it. You really meet yourself in a very honest way, and then how you carry yourself from there changes you, right? It changes the way how you feel about yourself, how you interact with others, in very subtle but I feel very significant ways.
I'm sold. I will share the details of your singing group in the podcast description.
Yes,
Of course.
yes, we would love to see
Yeah.
more and new singers come in and
have
share
you
this
also
with
had
us.
have you also had beginners, like people who are not even that confident with their singing, come?
Yes, we even had someone who didn't feel open or confident to share much, and then they came back the second time around, and it was they were in full bloom.
Wow.
So, and, and I also see it as practicing courage, especially for people who've never experienced it, something like that before, or who just don't sing much, so they don't feel comfortable with their instrument yet.
Yeah.
It's really a practice of courage.
It's true.
And
exactly.
It's one of the most important things I think that we can do for ourselves, to be curious and to be courageous. Like, this takes you places.
For sure.
Yes.
Speaking of places, I mean, I saw that you lived in India and that you taught music in India, which for me, that's very courageous.
It was quite adventurous as well.
Yeah, I think you were very adventurous. I wanted to know how were you received in India as a teacher who's from a completely different culture, and how did you teach to your Indian students?
Yes, actually, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking that I'll be teaching Indian students. In my head, it was like, I'm teaching students.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna try and do this to best of my capacity. And I was teaching mostly jazz repertoire, some kind of more contemporary jazz, but some kind of straight ahead jazz. So I was in that space, and it was quite an exciting time, because this is when jazz was kind of coming into India or into their institutions. And even I was there at the time when they were just building the first jazz club that was solely a jazz club in New Delhi. So I just felt like I traveled back in time in a way.
Wow.
And like, oh wow, I'm witnessing, a buildup of
jazz arriving.
The jazz arrival, to that part of the world. So, or just the infrastructure arrival to that part of the world. So it was quite exciting. And then I did realize that I'm teaching someone from a different cultural background, and I loved it, because the way how people would hear jazz music and then how they would express it vocally with all the existing vocabulary that they have that comes from their heritage was just so fresh and beautiful. So they would put a completely new spice to it, or just
exactly
a new element to it that made it very, very unique, and for me quite exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like a really rich time.
Yes. Yes. And we got to travel also around to do concerts, to also do some kind of educational outreach. So just also being faced with how the Western idea of what India is so limiting
So limiting.
and so unfair to the richness of the Indian culture, because every other place would be people with different faces, with different clothing, with
Yeah.
different customs, with different languages, or just and different scenery as well. So it's like, wow, why is India marketed only as this kind of kind of a place?
Honestly, I mean, from my experience, it's actually not at all an place.
Yeah, exactly. It's
I was
super vibrant,
yeah.
like non-stop. It's chaotic.
It's an electric place, I would say.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. It's really,
Yeah,
there's constantly something going on.
that's true.
Yes.
But I'm really happy that you're back in Zurich now, and you've brought with you all this cultural influence from your travels. I picked up on the fact that you studied in Spain music therapy.
Mhm.
How do you feel like that added some I want to say things to your arc, so you have more, what is the word, the flesh in French.
Oh.
You know what I mean? The arrow.
Yes, the arrow. Yes,
It's added
the arrow.
arrows to your arc. Oh my god.
That's a cool thing to think about. Also because I did some archery in India.
No way.
This summer, the past summer. It's like an interesting metaphor.
That's really funny.
A good metaphor for me.
And awesome for you. I love it.
A lot of fun and way more intense than I originally
One thing I
thought.
would want to do though is do it on horseback. That's like the next level.
Yes. Yes. That's like level pro. I really loved that I did music therapy in Spain because it's a very warm and human-centered culture.
Mm-hmm.
And what was very interesting to me, there was an exchange that was happening with an American university where their students came to present some of their work and research, and in parallel the students who were 1 year ahead of me were presenting theirs in Spain, and most of them were Spanish. And there was just, you could beautifully see the differences in the approaches.
Wow.
Like the American way, which I also, one of the things that I love about the American culture is this efficiency, precision, and data, right? You have a system where you get these numbers from, and then based on these numbers, these are the options that you have, and then you do them. So it's very systematic.
Yeah.
And then the Spanish way is like, yeah, there's some data, but it's more about who is this person and how am I connecting with them. So it's quite humanistic.
Yeah.
And less, there is data, as I say, and data is important, but it's not paramount in that sense. So it was beautiful to see this difference, and in my head was like, okay, I already got this systematic thing from living and studying in the States.
Right.
So it's nice that I study music therapy in a place that's so people-centered.
Right. So you get a completely different approach, and then you can blend them.
Yes.
And bring it to now your space in Zurich.
Yes. And I feel for me it was just, I remember when I started studying music therapy, and I was thinking, oh wow, what will I do? Will this be my full-time job? Is it possible to even be the full-time job? Because for a lot of people, and the reality of the profession is that oftentimes it is a part-time engagement. And then how I would calm myself down would be, but I'm becoming a different and a better person in the process of being in this school and just going through this.
That's true.
That's already a great value. And this is what I was mentioning of just now the things that I notice when I work with my private students, one-on-one students, is way different, or the questions that I would ask them or things that I would invite them to pay attention to is quite different than the things that I was doing several years ago. So it shifted my way of seeing and what I'm noticing, what I'm prioritizing.
That's really interesting.
And
Can you
that's
give me an
valuable.
example of something you would used to ask and now you ask it differently?
I would definitely be more focused on the body. And inviting my students to really find things that feel good, because oftentimes what feels good sounds good.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times the some pedagogical approaches is like, you do this way. So you make your mouth like this, or you do this and then this happens, kind of a thing. Like it's almost mechanical.
Yeah.
But now it's more of this invitation of, okay, stay with this. So it's rather not me giving so many instructions and kind of giving the shortcuts, but more about, okay, let's experiment with this. Let's do it in 5-6 different ways. I'll give you 2. You have to figure out the other 4.
Yeah.
And then you find, because you're the boss of your body, you find what feels best. And then we talk about it. So there's way more exploration. There's more introspection.
Yeah.
This kind of inner work that happens. Yes.
Oh, I'm left so inspired, and unfortunately we have to close and bring this to an end. But I think it's good also because then it was enough so that our listeners want to go on your website and find more about you and book a lesson with you as a singing teacher and join your singing group. So thank you so much for coming to the podcast today. I had a really great time.
Thank you for having me.
I wish that we could talk more, but we'll do that on our own time. So a little closing ring to the episode.